The wind was cruel that afternoon, dragging thin ribbons of dust across the barren stretch of Wyoming's high desert. The sun rode low, glowing like molten iron, heating the vast prairie until the air shimmered. Nothing moved except the faint silhouettes of distant tumbleweeds, and two figures whose fate was about to collide. Her name was Elara Mayfield, the daughter of an old frontier family, and the last surviving witness to an attack that had already shaken half the county. Her torn dress, dusty boots, and trembling breath made it clear she had been running for far too long. And now she had been caught. A makeshift wooden frame towered above her, two rough-cut logs standing like the legs of a giant, with a cross rope stretched taut near the top. Her hands were tied behind her back, her ankle fastened to the rope, pulling her body off the ground in an awkward, painful stretch. She was exhausted, breathing hard, but her eyes still held a fire that refused to die. A man kneeled beside her, checking the knot on the rope, but he wasn't the one who put her there. He was Rylan Creed, a rancher known for two things: his unflinching loyalty to the truth and his unstoppable stubborn streak. A red bandana hung loose around his neck. His vest was dusty, boots worn from long rides, and his hat rested low, shadowing sharp eyes that missed nothing. He looked up at her, his hand resting near the knot securing her leg. Elara's voice cracked. Don't do this." Her whisper carried a tremor, fear, desperation, and something else. Something Rylan couldn't yet name. Rylan glanced up slowly. "I ain't hurting you," he said, his voice steady. "But I need answers." Elara shook her head, breath trembling. "Rylan, listen to me. If you untie me now, they'll think you're helping me." He didn't flinch. "Maybe I am." Her eyes widened. "Don't say that. Not even in your mind. You don't know what you're stepping into." Rylan ignored her warning and reached carefully toward the knot holding her ankle. His fingers brushed the rope, tracing the tension. Whoever tied her had done it fast, but not carelessly. This wasn't the work of a common outlaw. The wind picked up, tossing her hair across her face. Rylan's jaw tightened. Who did this? Elara swallowed hard. For the first time, her voice broke. The Blackridge Riders. Rylan froze, eyes narrowing. The name tasted bitter in the air. The Blackridge Riders were no ordinary band. They were feared across 5 counties: raiders, smugglers, hired blades, and ghosts of the frontier who appeared without warning and left nothing but ash behind. Their leader, Jace Blackridge, was a man without conscience, a man whose cruelty was whispered around campfires. Rylan leaned back on his heel. "Why would they come after you?" She answered quietly, "Because I saw something they didn't want anyone to see." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "I know where they're headed, and I know what they plan to do next." Rylan's eyes hardened. "Then you need to be free, not tied up out here like a trophy." Elara shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. Rylan, don't do this, don't untie me." He frowned. "And why's that?" Her breathing grew shallow. "Because if they come back and find me gone, they'll burn your ranch to the ground, and they'll blame you for helping me escape. They won't stop with your property. They'll go after your workers, your family, everyone." She stared at him with eyes full of terror. "Untying me will cost you everything." The desert fell silent. Rylan lowered his gaze, his hand resting on the rope, fingers tightening. "Then let him come." Her eyes widened, partly awe, partly fear. Rylan continued, voice low, certain. "I ain't the type to leave folks to die just 'cause someone threatens me." He reached again for the knot. Elara whispered, broken, "Please don't." But Rylan Creed was a stubborn man, and once he made a choice, it might as well have been carved into stone. He gripped the rope firmly, and at that exact moment, a gunshot cracked across the plains. Rylan ducked instinctively, placing himself between Elara and the unseen shooter. Dirt kicked up beside him where the bullet struck the ground. Another shot, and another. A voice echoed across the desert, deep and mocking. "Untie her, Creed, and you're a dead man." Elara squeezed her eyes shut. They came back. Rylan rose slowly, turning toward the direction of the shots. 3 riders emerged from behind a ridge, dust trailing behind them like a storm. Their black coats snapped in the wind. At the front rode Jace Blackridge, his eyes cold and cruel. Rylan's voice remained calm. "Well now, looks like we got company." Elara whispered frantically, "Rylan, please, leave me. Ride away while you still can." But Rylan didn't move. Jace dismounted, boots crunching on dried grass. "Step away from her, Creed," he called. "She's ours, and this desert ain't big enough for you to play hero." Rylan spoke without fear. "Ain't nobody owned out here. Not in my sight." Jace smiled, slow, poisonous. "Then you'll die with her." Elara's breathing grew uneven. Rylan didn't look at her. His hand drifted to his holster. A long silence stretched between the two men, a silence thicker than the heat around them, heavier than the rope cutting into Elara's ankle. Jace tilted his head. "Last chance, Creed." Rylan spoke softly, almost to himself. "Don't do this." The same words Elara had used earlier, but now they sounded like a warning to the outlaw leader. Jace's eyes narrowed. "Oh, I'm doing it." Everything happened in a heartbeat. Rylan lunged, cutting the rope. Elara gasped as her leg dropped. Jace fired. Rylan rolled, grabbing her and pulling her behind one of the posts for cover. Dust exploded as bullets tore through the frame. Elara cried out, her voice raw. "Rylan, why didn't you listen?" He pressed his back to the wooden support, protecting her with his body. "'Cause someone has to stand up to them." Bullets whistled past. Jace shouted, furious, "Creed, this is the last mistake you'll ever make." Rylan whispered, breath heavy, "Well, the whole ranch is about to feel the consequences, ain't it?" Elara looked up at him, guilt and fear and gratitude mixing in her shaking eyes. And as the outlaws reloaded, Rylan pulled her close and murmured, "Hold on. This ain't over." The desert held its breath, and the story that would shake the entire ranch had only just begun. The ride back to the Creed ranch was a blur of dust, fear, and pounding hooves. Rylan had thrown Elara onto his horse, swung into the saddle behind her, and taken off the moment the riders paused to reload. Bullets screamed past them, tearing through the air like angry hornets, but Rylan kept the reins tight and his body positioned to shield her. The ranch came into view, a wide, sprawling property dotted with barns, cattle fences, workers moving like ants below the rising smoke of cooking fires. The familiar scent of hay and leather drifted in the air. The moment they galloped through the main gate, ranch hands rushed forward. Rylan jumped off the saddle, lifting Elara down carefully. "Sarah, get me water, clean cloths," he shouted. "We'll close the gates, lock him tight." A tall ranch hand jogged over. "Boss, what happened?" Rylan didn't answer directly. "We're in trouble. The kind that ain't right in a way." The workers exchanged nervous looks. Elara steadied herself, still shaken. Her ankle throbbed where the rope had cut into her skin, but she refused to rest. "Rylan, you should have left me." He shot her a sharp look. "Ain't in my nature." Inside the main house, Rylan eased her onto a chair. The room smelled of pine wood and fresh coffee. Maps, lasso ropes, and an old Winchester rifle hung on the walls. Elara clenched her hands together. "They will come for you. For all of you." Rylan poured her a glass of water. "Then we'll be ready." "Ready?" she repeated, incredulous. "Rylan, the Blackridge Riders aren't bandits. They're a plague." He crossed his arms. "Tell me what you saw." Her throat tightened. She stared at the wooden floor, voice quiet. "They burned down the Turner homestead. Took everything. They're gathering men weapons, and they're planning to take New Ashton." Rylan stiffened. New Ashton was the closest settlement, families, storekeepers, children. If the Riders attacked, dozens would die. Elara continued, "I overheard Jace Blackridge giving orders. He meant to silence me before I could warn anyone. That's why they tied me up. They wanted me to vanish without a sound." Rylan cursed under his breath. "And now they think you and me are together in this mess." Elara nodded miserably. "I told you, untie me, and they would come for everything you have." He knelt before her, his voice steady, firm. "Sometimes doing the right thing costs you, but it's still the right thing." She blinked rapidly, emotion tightening her chest. "Why are you risking all of this for me?" Rylan shook his head. "Ain't for you. It's for what you carry, the truth." Before she could answer, a horn blasted outside. Rylan's face went pale. "We'll burst through the door." "Rylan, riders on the East Hill. Dozens of them." The Blackridge Riders had arrived. Elara stood, ignoring the pain in her leg. "Rylan, don't face them. Not here. You have women, children, workers. They'll slaughter everyone." He grabbed his rifle. "You let me worry about that." The ranch hand scrambled into position, dragging crates, loading rifles, pulling families into the bunkhouse for shelter. Horses whinnied in fear. The ground trembled under the thunder of approaching riders. Rylan marched out, rifle in hand, determination in every step. Elara followed him to the porch. The hill overlooking the ranch turned black with riders. Their silhouettes lined the ridge, like vultures waiting for a kill. Jace Blackridge rode to the front, his black coat whipping behind him like the wings of a crow. His cold voice carried across the distance. "Creed, you just had to untie her, didn't you?" Rylan shouted back. "You ain't talking her, and you ain't touching my ranch." Jace's smile was thin, dangerous. "This ain't about her anymore. This is about lessons, and you about to learn yours." He raised his hand. The riders charged. The ground shook. The ranch workers braced. Elara's breath caught. Rylan whispered, "Hold the line." Gunfire exploded. The first wave of bullets tore into fence posts, kicked up hay, shattered windows. Rylan fired back, taking down 2 riders with precise shots. Will and the other hands joined, creating a wall of gunfire that echoed across the plains. Elara crouched low, hands over her ears, heart pounding like a drum. The battle raged, dust clouds rising, horses screaming, men shouting. One rider broke through the line and charged straight at Elara. Rylan spun, firing mid-turn. The rider fell. He shouted over the chaos, "Elara, get inside. Now." She shook her head violently. "No, I can help." Before she could finish, a blast tore through the air. A stick of dynamite hit the barn. Boom. Flames erupted sky-high, sending burning wood splinters raining down like fiery snow. Cattle ran wild. Ranch hands dove for cover, and smoke engulfed half the property. Elara screamed, "Rylan, your barn." But Rylan wasn't watching the barn. He was watching Jace Blackridge riding straight toward the house. Everything slowed, the thundering hooves, the shouting men, the crackling flames. Rylan lifted his rifle, firing once, twice, 3 times. But Jace weaved through the chaos expertly, barely flinching. Before Elara could react, Jace leaped from his horse and tackled Rylan to the ground. The rifle flew from Rylan's hands. The 2 men rolled in the dirt, exchanging brutal punches. Dust clouded around them as they fought like wild animals. Elara ran toward them. "Rylan." Jace heard her voice and grinned, blood dripping from his lip. "Look at that, your little witness is still breathing that." Rylan lunged. "Don't you touch her." Their fists collided again. Jace grabbed a knife from his belt, fast, practiced, lethal. Elara froze in terror. Rylan barely dodged the first swing. The second cut across his arm, drawing blood. He gritted his teeth, tackling Jace backward. They slammed into the dirt, wrestling for control of the blade. Elara grabbed a fallen rifle from the ground, shaking violently, pointing it at the 2 men locked in combat. Her voice cracked. "Jace, stop. Stop or I'll..." He laughed. "You ain't got the nerve, girl." She hesitated, just for a second. Jace kicked Rylan off and lunged at her. Elara closed her eyes. A gunshot roared, but she didn't fire it. Rylan, bleeding, had seized his fallen revolver and shot Jace in the shoulder. The outlaw leader staggered back, howling. Rylan rose slowly, breathing hard. "Told you, she ain't yours to threaten." Jace's expression twisted, fury, pain, hatred. He looked around and saw half his riders fallen, the rest retreating under the gunfire of the ranch hands. Smoke rose from the barn, but the house and main property still stood strong. Jace backed away, clutching his wounded shoulder. He spat at the ground. "This ain't over, Creed. You just made an enemy for life." Rylan raised his gun again. "Ain't the first time." Jace mounted his horse, glaring at Elara with burning resentment. "Next time, girl, no one's gonna save you." He rode off, his remaining men following in a dark trail of dust. Silence fell over the ranch. Smoke drifted upward from the burning barn. The workers slowly emerged from hiding. Children cried softly. Cattle wandered aimlessly in confusion. Elara turned to Rylan. His arm was bleeding. His hat was torn. His chest rose and fell heavily. But he was alive. He looked at her with a small, exhausted smile. "Told you not to worry." Her voice trembled. "Rylan, your ranch, your people, this happened because of me." He took a step closer. "No, another step. This happened because evil men think they can run the frontier." He paused, eyes burning with conviction. "And long as I'm breathing, that ain't gonna happen." Elara felt tears sting her eyes, not of fear, but of something deeper, something that felt like hope. Rylan looked around the damaged ranch. "We'll rebuild, stronger than before," she whispered. "And Jace." Rylan slid his revolver back into its holster. "He'll be back, but so will we." Elara closed her eyes, finally letting herself breathe. The ranch had been shaken, violently, but it had also roared back with a fire stronger than the riders could ever predict. Rylan touched her arm gently. "You're safe here, Elara, and you ain't alone." For the first time since her nightmare began, she believed him. and the desert wind carried away the last fading echo of the words that had started it all. Don't do this. But Rylan didn't listen, and because of that choice, the entire ranch had shaken and survived.